Welcome back to Good Girls Gotta Heal, the podcast where we learn to release the weight of childhood trauma and step into our most authentic selves. It's time to ditch that good girl mask and embrace a life of ease, compassion, and genuine connection. Join me, Megan Walsh, holistic trauma therapist, and let's embark on a journey of healing and self-discovery together. Let's dive in. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Good Girls Gotta Heal. I am Megan, your host, and I'm so excited to have you back with us today and thrilled to bring back Kelsey Wood. Kelsey is a licensed therapist with 13 years experience. She's licensed in California and Texas, and she does coaching worldwide. Kelsey specializes in working with the effects of childhood trauma in women. So she is exactly who we want to be talking to on this show. And if you've been around here for a while, in the first iteration of my podcast, Kelsey was my very first guest. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that was the case. So I'm so excited to have her back here on Good Girls Gotta Heal. So Kelsey, welcome. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you. I'm so excited. This is going to it's going to be so fun. So
I know it's going to be so good. And thank you so much for being here. The first time we talked all about hyper-independence, and I think I know that's going to come back into play in today's conversation, because today we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to take a less traditional path in life, especially as a woman. And so we're going to dive into that. But before we get there, I just want to check in and talk about, you recently had a post go very viral. And what I love is that this post is about you and who you are as a therapist and a clinician. And I actually just want to start there because I think this will be so great to give everybody insight into who you are as a clinician. And I'm so curious what you think resonated so much in this post.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a wild ride. It happened, right over, I think I posted it on December 23rd. So I woke up Christmas Eve with my family to kind of an inundation, and then it went through, obviously it's still kind of going, but the next few days. So it was a little interesting of a Christmas gift, which I'll take from the universe.
I know, totally.
But it felt great. I love the fact that, it was about me. It wasn't just, a 5 tips for the hyper independent woman or how to manage your anxious attachment or something like that. Right. It was very much who I am. I mean, every single thing I wrote, I had friends and family read it and they were like, yeah, this is you. If you were a therapist, I don't see them for therapy, but they're like, yeah, this makes sense. So
yeah. And what were some of those standout things for someone who, and of course I will be happy to share this post in the comments so people can see if they haven't already, but what are some of the standout pieces do you think really resonated?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The 2 that I got the most, it was, I think, 10 slides or something. The 2 pictures and words that I got the most comments on. So I think this is obviously what stood out for people. The first one was for I'm not going to push you into forgiveness. So I don't push clients into forgiveness. I think forgiveness is great. There's a place for it. I think it's a wonderful way to release yourself of past resentments or kind of separate and kind of cut the cord with circumstances and situations. But I think a lot of people push themselves into forgiveness when sometimes we don't have to forgive a person or a situation, an event. We don't have to forgive it to move on. We can simply move on or choose to just separate ourselves from it.
Totally.
So I'm really big on, if forgiveness is something that works for you, let's work with that. Great. But if you think you have to forgive someone to heal, that's just simply not true. Totally. So so that one got a lot of resonation.
That one comes at such an important time, kind of even as a response to the Mel Robbins New York Times, just like essentially forgive your family and otherwise you're going to be miserable your whole life, which is like, as therapists, we know there's so much more nuance to it than that. So I feel like that speaks directly to that.
Yeah, so that one for sure. And then the other one that I kind of love, because if any other baby therapists or baby business owners are, new business owners, not baby business, business owners are listening, the one that resonated with a lot of people was me kind of calling myself like, I'm a lioness therapist. I'm not a golden retriever therapist.
Yes.
So Megan, you've talked to me. You kind of know my personality.
Yes. I love it.
I'm a directive style therapist. That's because that's who I am as a person. I think something that is so great about what we're seeing, especially in the therapeutic world, but in general, moving forward, is we get to show up just authentically, because if I'm asking my clients to show up like that, I need to show up like that. I have to model that first. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to sit here with some really nice, soft, calming voice
Right.
It's just not how I talk.
It's just not you.
I can't
Yeah.
do it. I can't do it. So that really
Huh?
resonated with people, which was great to
Mm.
see, because I think, again,
Yes.
my grad school professors would probably be rolling in their graves about
Huh?
that,
Yep.
and some really traditional therapists, which was the whole
Yeah.
point of
It's
the
so
post.
true. It's so true. And I honestly, I mean, it so spoke to me, right?
Mhm.
As someone who definitely started out my career with more of the like golden retriever therapist energy, like
Most of
hands
us
down.
did.
Of course,
Yeah.
like hands down. It's just it's part of the mask of like, am I doing this good enough? Am I playing this role correctly? And so it really speaks to your own inner process of
Mhm.
really authentically claiming who you are and letting it be
Absolutely.
okay. That might not resonate for everybody, right? I'm sure some people saw that and were like, maybe that's not for me, and that's okay, right? That's the whole point of it. But it really spoke to so many who were like, yes, we need
Mhm.
more of this. And you're so right that authenticity is just what we all need so much of right now, and it is what is working, and I think what people are really drawn to right now
Yep.
and on social media especially. So I think everybody, I'll put this in the comments. You should all check it out because it really tells you a lot about Kelsey. And I think this also, you've been speaking a lot about the topic that we're going to dive into today, which
Mhm.
is what it means to make the active choice to be child free. And I want you to just tell us a little bit more about that. And I'm so curious of what shifted for you when you were like, I want to bring this way more into what I'm sharing and into my social media space.
Yeah, I love that you asked that, because something for me, I've worked, mostly with hyper independent women. I work with really successful, amazing women who struggle in relationships. That's why they're coming to see me as a relational therapist. But a really big corner of this population is this idea of children. Because
Mhm.
for most,
Yep.
stereotypically, for most women, it's kind of like, not are you, it's when are you going
When.
to have kids,
Right.
right? Those types of things. And
Oh, yeah.
so, and that still happens, and that's many people's choice,
Mhm.
which I love and respect. But I
Yeah.
think a big piece that wasn't really being talked about was this idea of being child free by choice, also by
Yeah.
circumstance. Both of those things happen for people. And
Mhm.
it's a really big crux of some of these women who I work with, who are very hyper independent, who really value other aspects of their life. And I think a misconception is that I think people think child free women like hate children,
Mm.
and we don't. As one
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't show it on here, but my home screen and my lock screen are my nieces and nephews. But they often love children, but they're wrestling or have come to a decision of, you know what, kids are great, they're wonderful, but they're not for me and they're not on my path. So I really wanted to speak and give a voice to that, because I think there's still a lot of taboo. I mean, we see constantly the, like, childless cat ladies, the
Mhm.
all of these horrific things, especially in this day and age when more
Mhm.
traditional values are being pushed,
Ugh,
and
yeah.
people may feel that pressure. And I really wanted to just give a space on the internet of, you don't have to do that. And there's so
Yeah.
many people who are happy and fulfilled without children, and
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes. And that's okay. Yes. And I'm so curious your journey towards this. Has it been something you've always known since you were a
Mhm.
kid, or was there a process where you were like, I think I'm supposed to do this, but actually I don't want it? Like I'm curious what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I have known since I was a kid, I did not want kids, which
Yeah.
is not
Okay.
the case for everyone, right? So I will acknowledge and honor that I think for me, it's been a little bit, maybe not easier, but a little bit easier for my path. I've known since I was a kid. I have memories of being 9 years old saying, I don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to have children. I don't want to do this. Again, I love kids. I love being around them, but it's never been something I really have seen in, when I vision my future. I think having children is amazing. I respect moms so much because I see it firsthand in my friends and family. I have been on night duty with my sisters with infants. Like, it is hard. And so I give so much respect to that. It's just never been something I have felt in my soul I wanted to do. And I think that's something I speak to with my clients of, becoming a parent is a really important job, if not the most important job that there is. So if you don't really, really want to do that, we might want to look at that, because bringing a kid into the world from a parent who maybe doesn't want to have kids isn't a great stepping stone for them. It's not a great starting point.
Mhm.
So I never wanted to have kids. I still didn't want to have kids. I have felt pressure in relationships to have children. I have definitely been through the iterations of that. There has been the little voice in the back of the head of, well, maybe, wouldn't it be so nice? All of those things, which I think are super normal to ask yourself and question, especially because society shoves it down our throat all day long. But I think it's something that just really speaks to me personally. And I think there's women who have that same experience. I think there's also women who recognize they don't want to have a child with a person that they are with their partner, which I think is just as important to note. And then there are some people obviously who don't have a partner or who can't have children for whatever reason. But I have never wanted to have children. But I love them.
And the thing that I see the most is this, like, you have to make this caveat every time.
All the time.
You're having this conversation. Like, I see you, I respect you, I get it, right? I understand. It's hard, but that sucks, right? Like, that sucks that you have to make that caveat every single time. Because I imagine that, I'm sure people have all sorts of comments and experiences. And I'm curious, what is that like for you in kind of having to do this?
I think it's exhausting.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the key connectors between my hyper-independent women that I work with, as well as child-free women, is the exhaustion of having to defend your space in this world. So when you're constantly having to defend your choices, your life choices, your bodily choices, which is wild that we're even having to do that, and almost give like a justification for why you have worth, it's exhausting. It also can be very isolating for people. It can also be, unfortunately, really detrimental for relationships, which pushes my hyper-independent woman even more isolated, right? So we have their friends who become mothers, that relationship changes. Again, that just does. It's not good or bad. It just happens. You have relational changes at work. There's so many things that do change for child-free women that are just not seen. There's this vision of, we're just like sipping a margarita on the beach on vacation, traveling the world, doing whatever we want at all times. And whilst we may have more opportunity to do that, we built that into our lives and we made that our choice. So we don't have other things that you may have. And just as we have some things that you may not have. And that's totally okay.
Right. And that's okay. And of course, as someone who has made the choice, right, to have a child, I think it is so important to be giving light and voice to this conversation. Because I remember when I first started dating my husband, so maybe 10 years ago, I knew that both of his sisters had made the choice to not have kids. And at that time, I was like, I remember asking, like, why don't they want them? Don't this, that, like, and that was my own conditioning that I would go back and change, because everybody deserves, right, the respect. And if I could go back and do it differently, I would change my thought and my process around getting curious around, I would love to learn more about what you want in life. Because that should be the question. What do you want your life to look like? And that's okay that it doesn't involve kids. And so I'm curious, what do you wish, or what would it sound like for someone to have the right words, to be affirming and seeing someone that is making that choice? What do you wish that you could hear? Or what do you wish more people knew how to say, how to give?
I think, so I'll start off. I will definitely answer. I would say the worst thing that you can say, which happens all the time, is don't worry, you'll change your mind. Almost everyone tells you you'll change your mind when you get older. Don't worry, it'll come around. If you're like me, as soon as I'm told I'm going to change my mind, I'm definitely now not going to change my mind. Granted, I wouldn't about this anyways, but I really encourage people to do that, to really check yourself when you're about to tell someone that. And this often comes from, again, it's interesting because most of these comments come from other women. Other guys often don't have much to say. They're just like, okay, cool. And then they move on. But other women, I think because the mother identity is such a huge part of the female-centered world, right? Which makes complete sense. So sometimes when we talk about it, there's almost like it's a challenging of, if I say I don't want to have children, there's this challenging of, you're challenging my identity and my choices, and we're just not doing it for ourselves. I think if you want to affirm and validate, the biggest thing is, if you don't know what to say, like if you really can't understand this and wrap your mind around it, just be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's all you have. You literally could just say, that's cool, that's great, and move on. A validating statement or something affirming would just be like, I'm so glad you made that choice for yourself. That would feel so good, I think, for women to hear, because it's a choice. Having children is a choice. and it doesn't get acknowledged often.
It is a choice, just like we all get to make the choice for what we have for dinner, or, like any choice that we make in our lives, we are allowed to make it and we're allowed to have it. And I'm so curious, for someone who is making this choice, what do you do to kind of help support them through the challenges of the isolation, or of perhaps if this comes up in a relationship where a partner might want kids? How do you support them in navigating that?
Yeah, I think with isolation, it happens a lot in the population I work with. This is a really big part of healing
Yeah.
work, is building community as a hyper independent, successful, potentially child-free, maybe not, woman, and especially if they're single as well. Those are all very isolating, individualized factors in a female's life.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to recognize where you can build your community and to actively go do so. A lot of us we say like, we want to build community, but that means you have to go do that.
Yeah.
You have to go find it. So
Right.
we talk a lot about, what, if you could envision your perfect life and community, what would that look like? Would that mean you're in a book club? Would that mean you go to the gym, whether you actually want to or not? Would that mean you go to a gym?
Right.
Would that mean you're in a sewing group?
Mm-hmm.
A singing group, right? Like all of these types of things, which I know you are. So
Yeah.
like all of those types of things are ways to build community. But we start with like, let's shoot for the stars, dream world. And then let's figure out what's within your actual reality, whether that's time. Time is a huge constraint for anyone. Financially, right? If you're spending money on gym memberships or other types of things, that's fair. But then also reality for you. So if we have someone who's extremely introverted and has a really hard time, we're going to start small. How can we figure out how to do that? A lot of bookstores nowadays have silent book clubs. So you can go to a bookstore, read in silence for an hour with other people. And so you can start to build community in a way that might actually feel less threatening and less difficult, because you don't actually have to talk to anyone. You don't have to engage, maybe before or after you can, you see the same people, you can say hi. So it's really about that with the isolation. That's something that comes up a lot for the population that I work with, and looking for other child-free people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
makes so much sense. Absolutely. And do you recommend communicating about this inside of your relationships? Being able to, and I'm curious if you've had the experience of telling someone, hey, this is how this makes me feel. I'm feeling a bit isolated, or feeling like you're not seeing me. Has that been an experience?
Yeah, so I think twofold. I think there's the romantic side of relationships, and then there's the platonic side of relationships. Romantically, I encourage all my clients from the very first jump, whether you're doing online dating, in the wild dating, wherever you're doing, if you know you do not want to have children, say that from the very beginning, because you do not want to build a connection with someone and then to have that turn into like, well, maybe I might, right? I don't want you to abandon yourself. If you know this, then they're just simply not your person. They might be a great dude or lady, but they're not your person. So definitely communicating that ahead of time is so vitally important to also save yourself from potential heartbreak or just honestly difficulty moving forward. And of course, everyone has the opportunity to change their mind. That can happen. But start from what you know. Platonically, this is actually where I think it's more difficult, because female relationships, woman-to-woman relationships, are like the cornerstone of our well-being as women. And many of us, I know for myself, it is truly some of the most important people in my life are my girlfriends. And being able to openly and honestly discuss and talk about our friendship has changed because now you have a child, or your 10th child, whatever it may be. And I'm child-free and I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling put off. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling less than. I'm feeling used, which is one that I can talk about that comes up a lot.
Yes.
Those are things that I think are really important. They are difficult conversations to have, because we do have to navigate and walk a line of how can we give a friend this information without coming off as we're judging their life choices to have a child, right? Like that's an amazing thing for them.
Yeah, totally.
So it's hard.
Yeah. And it's such a both and experience, right? And again, it goes back to, sorry, speaking of making a child, Sorry.
I love that. It's very
Yep.
serendipitous.
Yeah, I know, right? Really
Yeah.
good timing. I would love to hear about what it means to feel used especially inside of friendships with a friend who may have a child.
Yes. So this is kind of twofold. I think there's the awareness on the person who's a parent side, and then there's the awareness on the person who's child-free side. Because again, relationships are a two-way street. It's not just one or the other.
Right.
Oftentimes, especially when kids are younger, but it happens when they get older too. I have seen this myself in my own personal experiences, as well as with my clients, that oftentimes you are invited to said parent's house, to a mom's house or dad's house, whatever, and you are actually the entertainment. You are actually the break for the parent. You're not there to spend time with your friend, but you were invited over under the guise of like, hey, let's catch up. Do you want to come over on Saturday? But that's not what happens. And so it can be really difficult when, I'll speak for myself at least, I love my nieces and nephews. I love my friends' kids. And I want to spend time with them. I want to go play with Magnetiles, and I want to go color, and I want to go on their bikes, and I want to do all those things. At the same time, I want to spend time with my friend, and I want to catch up, and I want to finish a sentence without being interrupted. That's not necessarily possible with a kid around. And it's no judgment on the child. They're doing what they should. They're living their life. That's what they should be doing, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's just part of it. So it's this idea of how can we have a conversation of, hey, I really want to have this time with you alone. And when I come over, I just feel like a break. I'm your break because you can sit here and finish your cup of coffee whilst I go play with your kid. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
I will voluntarily do that if that's what's openly discussed and communicated.
Right.
And I think that's where it can be difficult, because I do know from a lot of clients, my mom friends, my sisters, that's not their intention. Their intention actually is to catch up. Their intention is to have me come over and have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. And then Susie will quietly play on the floor and we'll actually have a wonderful time. Yeah. That's just not what happens in reality, right?
Right.
So it's really important, I think, to remember, like, none of this is of malintent. It's also not something that we need to get defensive about when often it does. It is just the clear communication around, I want to build a relationship with you and your child because that's important to me. And I want to continue to evolve this relationship with you. Yeah, and both need space and time to be honored.
Yes, absolutely. This is so key and so important. And I hear, I think even inside of this, there's a grief process, right? Like there's a grief process of what our relationship used to be, right? Where we could easily, like before you had a kid, or we can easily go to brunch, we could go to dinner. We got to have so much more intentional time. And now your child, again, who we love, is right making that, or your choice to be a parent is now having an impact on our level of connection, which, I know is a common, I think in the conversation that this often goes towards parents, inside of their relationship, like the two parents together and right, like, yes, you're going to feel more disconnected. It's going to be harder. We need to focus on creating separate time outside of the kids for your relationship. And you are so right that this needs to extend absolutely into all of your relationships, your friendships, your family relationships, all of them still need that intentional separate time and space to connect on a one-to-one personal level. And that is so key. And I think that is an area that especially many parents need to take a look at and to examine. And of course, that is their own work. And I think especially I hear a lot of need for examining over why might someone get defensive with you, right? Like, or feel offended by your choice or you telling them how you feel. And that's always disappointing when someone might not be at that place to meet you there, to really to see and hold space for where you are, which I know happens in many ways, but especially here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just the acknowledgement. I think I talk a lot about this idea of it's a season, when you have an infant versus a toddler versus a high schooler, all of those are going to look very different in terms of needs, right? As the parent. So when there's an infant, no, maybe we're not going out to dinner. Maybe it is going to be a walk so the baby can sleep, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Two birds, one stone. I get that. Totally fair. Yeah. But maybe dinner is going to happen when they're in middle school because we feel more comfortable. They're at a play date, right? Who knows, whatever it might be. And that's okay. Yeah. But I think it's also just, I think sometimes what can be really helpful for both sides, child-free women as well, it's just acknowledge. acknowledge this is where we're
Right.
at, and we can feel sad about it. It's absolutely a grief process. And that's where we're at right now. That doesn't mean that's where we're always going to be.
Yeah, it's so true. And again, such a great reminder, and your ability to hold, right, the both and space of we can all acknowledge where we all are, and we all still get to have needs, and those get to be seen and heard, and they are so important. And this is, I'm reflecting on even internally thinking of different friendships that I have, and certain ones with friends who I know actually they do want kids, but they don't have them yet. And even just knowing the shift there, and even some more distance that has been present. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to own my part in that and acknowledge it and name it, because it is so key. It is so, so very important. And I'm curious too, in your work for those that choose to be child free, how does hyper independence, is there a connection? We know there's a connection, but I'm just curious your thoughts on the connection between if you hold more of a hyper independent mask, let's say, or experience, however we want to frame it, and choosing to be a child free. Curious about your thoughts about the connection.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a connection. Is it a causation? No, of course not. And there's many hyper independent women who have children, who want children, etc. One thing I think we're seeing more and more of, though, is that there's a really big cultural shift in narratives, right? In terms of what a woman's life has to look like. And so it's not as much necessarily, it used to be, right? Kind of societally, like, go to college, meet your husband, get married, have babies, right? That's what it was. Like, you went to college almost to meet a partner. And that's obviously not quite what's happening, and has not been happening for quite some time. Right. So a lot of women who are hyper independent really, really, really value their career and their financial considerations. So when we look at women who are more successful, more educated, often that's also going to link to some hyper independence as well. All of those things take work and take a long time and take effort and energy. If you have children, can you still be successful? Yes, of course. Look at many, many, many women, right? It doesn't mean you're giving one up, but it does change it. And we also know that for women in the workforce, if you have a baby, you are going to take a pay cut over time. You are going to potentially lose opportunities, which means you may not move up as quick. Well, it doesn't mean you may. You will not move up as quickly as your male counterparts. You are going to have to lose recognition, lose time because you're taking care of your child. Falls into the whole mental and emotional labor load at home, right? All of these things come into play. And for someone who's hyper independent, they already do it all. So if we already do it all, how am I going to do more with a child? And so, because that's not like, it's not a goldfish. It's not a cat. It's not like you can just take the dog on the walk and put it
exactly
in,
and leave it at home.
No, not quite. So I think that there's a lot of connection, and it really is about when we view how we want to be in this world. There's a lot of women also who are just looking at the larger factors with hyperindependence as a piece of this. It's really expensive. There's a lot of factors that come into play, and hyperindependence especially, there's usually a very focused target of what are we trying to do. And success is usually one of those things. It's all trauma-based, right? All of this comes from trauma. So it is difficult. And there's definitely a, correlation there.
And
if you, the last thing I'll say on this is, in hyperindependence, if you already struggle to ask for help, if you already struggle to not do everything, if you already struggle to not take everything on, if you are partnered and you still struggle to not do that, you are going to end up raising a child alone because you cannot ask your partner or get your partner to do something. Hopefully you have a great proactive partner. That's the goal. I wish that for everyone. But when we're hyper independent, we often enable a pattern that does not support that.
So true. And I am resonating deeply knowing that I see this so often with even many new moms who are navigating, how do I shift the hyper independence when I'm drawn towards doing most things, but I need help. I desperately need help. And maybe my partner is not intuitive in how to do it. And it is such a struggle. And if we take having needs inside of relationships for the hyper independent woman. And maybe, right, a woman who has just, lifelong been hyper independent and had a hard time being able to acknowledge needs in relationships, or even being able to find compassion for herself, and like that having needs is not being needy. And of course, there's a problem with the being needy, because again, we all have needs, right? It's not a bad thing. It's actually very important. What would you say, or what would you say to them in terms of how to help soften and really bring more vulnerability into their relationships?
Yeah, vulnerability is a strength. Such a strength to be able to be vulnerable. And it's also so hyperindependence is often what is absolutely smothering your connection. So when I have people say, I can't get close to my partners, or my partner and I are, they're struggling, right? All of those things, there's no connection because the hyperindependence is struggling it. We as humans are back in caveman days, right? Like, we're meant to work in groups. We're meant to help. We're meant to support. I go pick the berries, you boil the water, you do, like, this person does that. We all have a role to play, and that's how we connect. And so in a relationship, if you can actually give an opportunity for your partner to support you, whether that is helping, right, in some manner, whether that's just hearing you and giving you space to vent and talk about all of it, or actually supporting you, shifting some of these things, that's what is going to build your connection with that person. And that's ultimately what all of us are so desperately wanting, is just connection. And so for my hyper independent ladies, practicing giving your partner an opportunity to support you, even something as little as, you don't have to carry 2 grocery bags in, you can carry 1, and they can carry 1.
Yes.
And I know that sounds silly, but it's so true. Just practicing letting the burden and letting that
totally
go.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of so many of my clients who might say, I don't want to have to tell them. I should not have to tell them to pick up the dang grocery bag, right? They should just know. And oftentimes, right, that becomes a wall where they get stuck. And so hard to know that we have to, right? We have to tell people how to partner with us. And ideally, right, over time, they get the hint, right? They learn that, this is required. Because when you have a whole relationship where you might be over functioning for this person, they've just learned, right? Like, they learned to expect that you were going to do it. So to change the script, we have to tell them. We have to give them the tools and the skills and the knowledge of what you need, so that they get to a place of being able to do it without you asking.
Yeah. And a tip for that too, for hyper-independent women, really any woman, is don't just give them the knowledge, the tools, right, all those things, because we have to communicate our needs to our partner. I get it. We don't want to, but we have to. Tell them why it's going to make you feel a certain way. So even just something simple as the groceries. Hey, when we go to the grocery store and I'm carrying all the grocery bags in, that makes me feel really alone, and it makes me kind of frustrated. So when you pick up a grocery bag, either one of them or both of them, that makes me feel really cared for. And when I feel cared for, I feel closer and safer with you. And that's what I want to feel in this relationship. When we can give that next layer of depth of why, not just, hey, you're being lazy, why don't you pick up a grocery bag, right? When we can give that next, and maybe that's true, but if we can give that next layer, there's going to be, oftentimes it helps the motivation, especially for men, of them. If I can understand, I can do it. Right. And that helps the male brain a little bit.
Yeah. And it also helps the tendency for the male brain to take in your need as criticism of them. Right. Correct. That like, you're lazy, you're a piece of shit. Like, you're not, that is so common that is the inner dialogue, that she's telling me this, I'm not doing it right. So it must mean I'm bad. And therefore, right, more disconnection. So exactly this, right? Cutting down to the real heart of it is that, no, it's about you doing this will make me feel closer to you. It'll make me feel seen and held and nurtured and loved. It is not me telling you are a bad person. Not at all. It's just about my need, which that is really, I think, the key, that I think once couples can understand that, right? Couples, but friends too, right? Like in any relationship, once we understand that, getting to that depth place definitely helps to bridge more connection. And then especially to help the independent woman feel more confident and make it feel less risky, right? Like risk of abandonment or rejection, to actually name your needs.
Yep. Well, and hyper-independence is a consistent letdown of needs, right? So you stop asking.
Yeah.
And so if you have a space where you feel safe to ask and things are actually followed through, it's the most liberating feeling for
Yeah.
people. And it builds the best connections with your partner when that happens.
Oh, it's so true. So true. And what would be, if anyone is really identifying with especially the role of the hyper independent woman and the role of child free by choice, right? Creating the life that you want to live. What would be your what you would want them to sit with, to think through, to kind of, what would be an intention that you have for them in terms of kind of just taking a minute, because here we are, at the new year, and what would be something for them to reflect on that you would want to share?
I think it's funny. I just wrote this down actually, even on my kind of intentions for the year, but I think this is helpful.
Yeah.
I would love for a hyper independent woman who's also child free, whatever circumstance or phase of life, right? You could be 25, you could be 65. I want you to focus on centering yourself. So often we center other people, right? Or we center other things. We center our businesses. We center our financial constraints or goals. We center other things that kind of are on, kind of orbiting around us, our families, our friends, our kickball league, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I want you to center yourself. So if you center yourself, that does not mean, I want to be clear, that does not mean that we are becoming selfish. Well, actually, I think we could all be a little bit more selfish, but it doesn't mean that we are being self-centered. It doesn't mean that we are isolating. It does not mean that we are negating our friendships and our relationships, but it means that we're practicing, does this feel good for me? Does this work for me in my life? Does this also align with my values? If I'm at the center of this, are the things that are happening and orbiting around me what I want to happen and have orbit around me? Yeah. And I talk a lot about like feeling in alignment. And when we feel in alignment, things just flow. Things work out better. Life is easier. It's less
It's true.
work.
Yep.
Yes. So I would say practice and focus on centering yourself. Journal about it and see what comes up.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that for any woman listening. I think that is a beautiful, beautiful intention to sit with and to hold. How are you going to center yourself this year? Because isn't that right? That's the healing journey, right? Is how do we reconnect with our own self, our own needs, our own alignment? And that does not mean that we are not showing up for the people that we love. It just means that we are honoring ourselves first. I love that so much. Beautiful. Oh, well, Kelsey, thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation. I know it is going to resonate with so many, and thank you for leading it, because I don't think many people are having this conversation or initiating it and leading it. And so I really am grateful to you for having the conversation with me today. And I guess I want to check in. Is there anything that we left out? Any pieces of this conversation that we left out? Should have asked that before that, but
that's okay. It's better late than never, I guess.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Sure.
I would say the only other thing I talk about a lot that I would encourage people to think about, and again, this can apply to any woman, regardless of whether you're child-free or hyper-independent, is this shift in fulfillment. So fulfillment does not have to look the same as it used to. It does not have to look like the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, and the golden retriever. It does not have to look like that. So if you are single, child-free, or partner child-free, hyper-independent, whatever mixture of the above, is really just being aware and focusing on what fulfillment for you looks like. Because it does not have to look like how society tells you a woman will be fulfilled.
Yeah.
You will get told that. It does not have to be. So I would say that's my last little thing is personal fulfillment can look different.
Yeah. No, you know what? I love that. And as you're saying that, I'm like, actually, this is something, like a bit of something I've been sitting with lately. Like I've shared around, the fertility, the pregnancy losses that I've had this past year. And it's actually like forced me to sit with like, what if the vision isn't what I've pictured it to be? Like, what if it really doesn't happen as easily? What if, I have one child and that is okay? Like, right. Having to actually shift the framework of what is fulfilling to me. And it's interesting, like now that we're bringing it here, that is something that I've been holding. And I imagine too, for anyone who is child free by not being able to, circumstance, exactly, that is a piece, right? And there's a grief there, right? Of like, ooh, I thought it was going to look this one way and maybe it won't. And the shift. And I've noticed whether I've been consciously, and I guess I haven't been consciously doing it, but I've noticed my brain going to places of like, well, okay, I'd be okay. right, I'd be okay if this is right. This is if I have one and I'm grateful and I can grieve and, holding space for all of that. So I think this conversation really, really touches that point too. I appreciate you bringing that back in.
Yeah, of course. Well, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing your kind of journey with this because I think it's so important for people to hear and
Yeah.
to have. And I appreciate you having me on to talk about this because I think it's so important. So,
Yeah, so important. I so appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to link all of Kelsey's, her Instagram, TikTok, website, everything that you can do to find her. I know that you are pretty likely going to be very booked up very soon. So if you want to work with Kelsey, be sure to check her out there and get on her wait list. So Kelsey, thank you so much for being here. We'll have you
I
back again.
appreciate it so much.
Yes,
That'd be
thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Good Girls Gotta Heal. I am so grateful to have you in this community. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. That helps us out greatly. And we'll see you next time.